series, and I really like this book by Daniel Keyes, Flowers for Algernon. So I'm going to be reading you guys Report 10 today. And basically, he's just getting smarter, and he's telling the reader how he's developing these skills and what he's doing with his intelligence. All right, so it's April 21st, Progress Report 10. I figured out a new way to set up the mixing machines in the bakery to speed up production. Mr. Donner says he will save labor costs and increase profits. He gave me $50 bonus and a $10 a week raise. I wanted to take Joe Carp and Frank Riley out to lunch to celebrate, but Joe had to buy some things for his wife, and Frank was meeting his cousin for lunch. I guess it will take time for them to get used to the changes in me. Everyone seems frightened of me. When I went over to Gimpy and tapped him on the shoulder to ask him something, he jumped up and dropped his cup of coffee all over himself. He stares at me when he thinks I'm not looking. Nobody at the place talks to me anymore, or kids the way they used to. It makes the job kind of lonely. Thinking about it makes me remember the time I fell asleep standing up and Frank kicked my legs out from under me. The warm, sweet smell, the white walls, the roar of the oven when Frank opens the door to shift the loaves. This is at the bakery. Suddenly, falling, twisting, everything out from under me and my head cracking against the wall. It's me, and yet it's like someone else lying there. Another Charlie. He's confused, rubbing his head, so he's reminiscing about when he was retarded. It's really good. It's excellent. He's confused, rubbing his head, staring up at Frank, tall and thin, and then at Gimpy nearby, massive, hairy, gray-faced Gimpy, with bushy-eyed brows almost hide his blue eyes. "Leave the kid alone," says Gimp. "Jesus, Frank, why do you always gotta pick on him?" "It don't mean nothing," laughs Frank. "It don't hurt him. He don't know any better. Do you, Charlie?" Charlie rubs his head and cringes. He doesn't know what he's done to deserve this punishment, but there is always the chance that there will be more. "But you do know better," says Gimpy, clumping over on his orthopedic boot. "So what the hell you always picking on him for?" The two men sit down at the long table, the tall Frank and the heavy Gimp, shaping the dough for the rolls that have to be baked for the evening orders. They work in silence for a while, and then Frank stops and tips his white cat back. "Hey, Gimp, think Charlie could learn to bake rolls?" Gimp leans an elbow on the work table. "Why don't we just leave him alone?" "No, I mean it, Gimp, seriously. I bet he could learn something simple like making rolls." The idea seemed to appeal to Gimpy, who turns to stare at Charlie. "Maybe you got something there. Hey, Charlie, come here a minute." As he usually does when people are talking about him, Charlie has been keeping his head down, staring at his shoelaces. He knows how to lace and tie them. He could make rolls. He could learn to pound, roll, twist, and shape the dough into the small round forms. Frank looks at him uncertainly. "Maybe we shouldn't, Gimp. Maybe it's wrong. If a moron can't learn, maybe we shouldn't start anything with him." "You leave this to me," says Gimpy, who has now taken over Frank's idea. "I think maybe he can learn. Now listen, Charlie. You want to learn something? You want me to teach you how to make rolls like me and Frank are doing?" Charlie stares at him, the smile melting from his face. He understands what Gimpy wants, and he feels concerned. He wants to please Gimpy, but there is something about the words learn and teach, something to remember about being punished severely, but he doesn't recall what it is. Only a thin white hand upraised hitting him to make him learn something he couldn't understand. Charlie backs away, but Gimpy grabs his arm. "Hey kid, take it easy. We ain't gonna hurt you. Look at him shaking like he's gonna fall apart. Look, Charlie, I got a nice new shiny good luck piece for you to play with." He holds out his hand and reveals a brass chain with a shiny brass disc that says Star Bright Metal Polish. He holds out the chain by one end, and the gleaming gold disc rotates slowly, catching the light of the fluorescent bulbs. The pendant is a brightness that Charlie remembers, but he doesn't know why or what. He doesn't reach for it. He knows you get punished if you reach out for other people's things. If someone puts it into your hand, that is all right, but otherwise it's wrong. When he sees that Gimpy is offering it to him, he nods and smiles again. That he knows, laughs Frank. Give him something bright and shiny. Frank, who has let Gimpy take over the experiment, leads forward excitedly. Maybe he wants that piece of junk bad enough, and you tell him he'll get it if he learns to shape the dough into rolls. Maybe it'll work. As the bakers set to the task of teaching Charlie, others from the shop gather around. Frank clears an area between them on the table, and Gimpy pulls off a medium-sized piece of dough for Charlie to work with. There is a talk of betting on whether or not Charlie can learn to make some rolls. Watch us carefully, says Gimpy, putting the pendant beside him on the table where Charlie can see it. Watch and do everything we do. If you learn how to make rolls, you'll get this shiny good luck piece. Charlie hunches over on a stool, intently watching Gimpy put a knife and cut off a slab of dough. He studies each movement as Gimpy rolls out the dough into a long roll, breaks it off and twists it into the circle, pausing now and then to sprinkle it with flour. Now watch me, says Frank, and repeats Gimpy's performance. Charlie is confused. There are differences. Gimpy holds out his elbows as he rolls the dough like a bird's wings, but Frank keeps his arm close to his sides. Gimpy keeps his thumbs together with the rest of his fingers as he kneads the dough, but Frank works with the flat of his palms, keeping thumbs apart from his other fingers and up in the air. Worrying about these things makes it impossible for Charlie to move on when Gimpy says, "Go ahead, try it." Charlie shakes his head. "Look, Charlie, I'm going to do it again slow. Now you watch everything I do and do each part along with me, okay? But try to remember everything so you'll be able to do the whole thing alone. Now come on, like this." Charlie frowns as he watches Gimpy pull off a section of dough and roll it into a ball. He hesitates, but then he picks up the knife and slices off a piece of dough and sets it down the center of the table. Slowly, keeping his elbows out exactly as Gimpy does, he rolls it into a ball. He looks out from his own hands to Gimpy's, and he is careful to keep his fingers exactly the same way, thumbs together with the rest of his fingers, slightly cupped. He has to do it right, the way Gimpy wants him to do it. There are echoes inside him that say, "Do it right, and they will like you," and he wants Gimpy and Frank to like him. When Gimpy has finished working his dough into a ball, he stands back, and so does Charlie. "Hey, that's great. Look, Frank, he made it into a ball." Frank nods and smiles. Charlie sighs, and his whole frame trembles as the tension builds. He is unaccustomed to this rare moment of success. "All right now," says Gimpy. "Now we make a roll." Awkwardly, but carefully, Charlie follows Gimpy's every move. Occasionally, a twitch of his hand or arms mars what he is doing, but in a little while he is able to twist off a section of the dough and fashion it into a roll. Working beside Gimpy, he makes 6 rolls, and sprinkling them with flour, he sets them carefully alongside Gimpy's in the large flour-covered tray. "All right, Charlie." Gimpy's face is serious. "Now let's see you do it by yourself. Remember all the things you did from the beginning. Now, go ahead." Charlie stares at the huge slab of dough and at the knife that Gimpy has pushed into his hand. And once again, panic comes over him. What did he do first? How did he hold his hand, his fingers? Which way did he roll the ball? 1,000 confusing ideas burst in his mind at the same time, and he stands there smiling. He wants to do it, to make Frank and Gimpy happy and have them like him, and to get bright good luck piece that Gimpy has promised him. He turns the smooth, heavy piece of dough around and around on the table, but he cannot bring himself to start. He cannot cut it into it, because he knows he will fail and he is afraid. He forgot already, said Frank. It don't stick. He wants it to stick. He frowns and tries to remember. First, you start to cut off a piece. Then you roll it into a ball. But how does it get to be a roll like the ones in the tray? That's something else. Giving time and he'll remember. As soon as the fuzziness passes away, he'll remember. Just another few seconds and he'll have it. He wants to hold on to what he's learned for a little while. He wants it so much. Okay, Charlie, sighs Gimpy, taking the cutter out from his hand. That's all right. Don't worry about it. It's not your work anyway. Another minute he'll remember. Only if they wouldn't rush him. Why does everything have to be in such a hurry? Go ahead, Charlie. Go sit down or look at your comic book. We gotta get back to work. Charlie nods and smiles. Pulls the comic book out from his back pocket. He smooths it out and puts it on his head as a make-believe hat. Frank laughs and Gimpy finally smiles. Go on, you big baby, snores Gimpy. Go sit down there until Mr. Donna wants you. Charlie smiles at him and goes back to the flour sacks in the corner near the mixing machines. He likes to lean back against them while he sits on the floor cross-legged and looks at pictures in his comic books. As he starts to turn the pages, he feels like crying, but he doesn't know why. What is there to feel sad about? The fuzzy cloud comes and goes, and now he looks forward to the pleasure of the brightly colored pictures in the comic book that he has gone through 30, 40 times. He knows all of the figures in the comic. He has asked their names over and over again of almost everyone he meets, and he understands that the strange forms of letters and the words in the white balloons above the figures means what they are saying. Would he learn to read what was in the balloons? If they gave him enough time, if they didn't rush him or push him too fast, he would get it, but nobody has time. Charlie pulls his leg up and opens the comic book to the first page where Batman and Robin are swinging up a long rope to the side of a building. Someday he decides he's going to read, and then he will be able to read the story. He feels a hand on his shoulder and he looks up. It is Gimpy holding out the brass disc and chain, letting it swing and twirl around so that it catches the light. Here, he says gruffly, tossing it into Charlie's lap, and then he limps away. I never thought about it before, but that was a nice thing for him to do. Why did he? Anyway, that is my memory of the time, clearer and more complete than anything I've ever experienced before, like looking out of the kitchen window early when the morning light is still gray. I've come a long way since then, and I owe it all to Dr. Strauss and Professor Niemer and the other people here at Beekman. But what must Frank and Gimpy think and feel now, seeing how I've changed? People at the bakery, April 22nd, the day after. So not the day after, that was April 21st. Yeah, the day after. April 22nd's journal entry is kind of a memory that he has these memories of when he was retarded or whatever you want to call it, mentally disabled. And his memories are so vivid and he's able to explain everything and why he was feeling this way and how he was confused and what made him confused and the people around him and how they're feeling, and all these feelings he's now able to express it in writing. He couldn't write months ago, and now he's able to write and have these memories and write down how he felt.